Greetings and salutations, fellow thinkers, drinkers, Motorhead aficionados. Now, for those of you who've been paying attention, and I'm sure there are two of you out there, I really am sure. When last we spoke, we ended on a triumphant note with the release of Bastards. Now, for those of you who really have been paying attention, I've already discussed that since this four-piece came together, a slightly worrying pattern has been forming. Namely, which they started with Orgasmatron. They put out a really strong effort, and they followed it up with a bit of a turkey. They rectified it, 1916, and then they followed that up with March or Die. We've discussed all this. Now, last time I said that Bastards was the best thing they'd ever done, up until this point. How do they follow it up? Right, Sacrifice was released in 1995. Some background information I suppose we need to get out of the way. After the absolute debacle of the distribution aspect of Bastards, the fact that outside of Germany it was hardly commercially available, they signed to yet another record company and yet another German record company, SPV or SPV Steamhammer, with whom they remained for the rest of their career. So obviously, an improvement in relationship, and presumably an improvement in service. Now, Howard Benson was retained, who I think at least did such a fantastic job producing Bastards. But apparently this time, according to what we've heard or read, he was somewhat distracted and left some things perhaps more than, so left it more in the hands of the recording sound engineer than perhaps he should have done. Is that audible? There is something about this production that's not quite as great, shall we say, as was Bastards. It's not a bad production by any stretch of anybody's imagination. Is it just one of those things that once you've heard people voice that opinion and you start hearing things? I don't know. There is no objective way, sort of scientific way to judge this. How do you measure a good or bad production? I mean, you can hear everything. It's clear. It's not too muddy. It's not too tinny. It's not too thin. Okay, Mickey D was now a fully fledged member of Motörhead, where he would also remain until the end of the band's career. And I mean, they've never had a bad drummer, have they? Filthy, obviously. Pete Gill was no fool on the drums. But there's just something about Mickey. Yeah, he really goes for it on every song. It's fun. It's especially fun to watch, but it gives the band a different feel. Well, it's not a bad thing. It's probably not as rock and roll as certainly as Filthy was, and that probably will make itself felt. But he's now, and what a great servant to Motörhead, great member of the band he turned out to be. On the other hand, Whistle, the other guitar player, who joined at the same time Phil Campbell did, almost a decade prior to this, 11 years, was very much on his way out. This was the last album with which he was officially associated. But again, just about everybody else has said that his contributions were, how shall we describe them? Minimal. So that's the background. What did we get? Well, Sacrifice kicks things off rather nicely. They really had a bad opening song. They haven't had that. They've had some absolute beasts. This is top tier stuff. It's not Iron Fist, but it's top tier stuff. It's not Back at the Funny Farm. It's not the one to sing the blues. But again, I have to make this point. This is Motörhead. We are Motörhead, and we play rock and roll. Yes, Lem, but you also played metal, which this track undeniably is. There is nothing rock and roll about this. And that's not a pejorative judgment. It's just whether it's good or bad, it's not the point. There's just nothing rock and roll about this. But it's fast, it's heavy, and it's another classic opener. There's another. It's actually much shorter than one thinks. I seem to remember when I heard it live, it was longer. Did they incorporate Mickey's drum solo into this? Maybe that was it. I don't know. But fine, we're off to a good start. No complaints. And they follow this up with Sex and Death. It's another one of, we've discussed these before, these 2 minutes rock and roll, fun, balls to the wall efforts that have punctuated several of their releases to date. It's absolutely great. It's incredibly catchy. It's got that earworm quality to it, but that no way diminishes. It's just so much fun, and tongue in cheek but profound lyrics. And how can you go long? How can you go wrong even with what is it? The answer to life's mystery is simple and direct. It's sex and death. This is profound stuff and a great song. They followed up with Over Your Shoulder, which is slightly slower on this occasion. It's more of a heavy grinding riff. Again, this is metal. If we're going to follow up on that theme, you could argue Sex and Death was a Motörhead styled rock and roll. We're back to metal here. Lemmy's bass work on here is interesting. I mean, he's never a conventional bass player, was it? That's a bit of stretch of anyone's imagination. But this, yeah, where does the groove come from? Does it come from the beat? I don't know, but here it seems to come from Lem's bass playing on here. It's listen to it. It's catchy. The bass playing, different for Lemmy, I think. But again, yeah, another really strong song, and absolutely nothing to complain about thus far. They move on to War for War, which is again slightly slower. I think it's an attempt to be anthemic, and it just doesn't quite get there. Not bad. It's not filler. It's just not. They move on to Order Fade to Black, which picks up the pace again nicely. Again, this is a much more metal sounding song. It thunders along nicely enough, there's no two ways about it. And they've got some interesting tempo changes, something they started an album or two ago, which you can, I think, legitimately say is indicative of, their improving musicianship, or they're developing musicianship, that they're trying these different things. And not only trying them, they're making them succeed within the confines of, generally a 3 to 4 minute song. You wouldn't think that tempo changes or stuff like that are necessarily wanted or warranted in something like that. This is not, this is not Rush, filling up the whole side of a record. But they're making it work, and it's a much stronger effort than War for War, for example. It's a good one. I like it. Dogface Boy up next, allegedly dedicated in reference to Phil Campbell. With friends like that, eh? It's a decent effort. It's got a really good rhythm. As a song, though, it doesn't. Yeah, again, I wouldn't say it's filler. I don't think there is any filler on this. I'll get that out of the way. But somehow does not quite hit the mark. No. We move on to All Gone to Hell. This is better. This is back to their usual ass-kicking selves. Fast, catchy, strong stuff. All their albums have got these sort of songs. They all need them. And in this case, they've titled it All Gone to Hell. We've had Monty Python references before. But I was almost about to say, and now for something completely different. It's not completely different. It would be something of an exaggeration. But the next track, Make 'Em Blind, is different. It opens with a quiet drum solo. When I say quiet, obviously, relativize all these adjectives. Which Lemmy starts singing against unaccompanied. The guitar slowly in the background, not too loud, not too domineering, not too overpowering, builds up. And this is actually musically quite adventurous. This is not something you've heard from them before. I like it. Makes you sometimes wish they'd occasionally taken a few more chances. I think what's notable about this song is the guitar solo, which played by Phil Campbell. And legend has it that he played this lying flat on his back, laughing his ass off because he'd just fallen over. And again, once you're aware of that, or you've heard that rumor or fact, whatever it happens to be, you can automatically hear it in the guitar solo. Whether you would have done had you not known the background, it's just one of those things. But you can't unknow something, can you? Once you've been told it. Yeah, I think this is really good. They are trying something a little different musically. Again, I think this really works. We move on to "Don't Waste Your Time," which is it's short, it's fast, it's a bit more rock and roll than metal. This one, it's actually got some honky tonk piano in it, which is not totally out of place. I'll just say that. However, if we're going to be critical, this is a little too close to going to Brazil, in all fairness. If you've heard "Going to Brazil," these are very, very closely related. Product of incest, even. Too closely related. It's not a bad song. It's just, I mean, I suppose you could say over their career, a lot of Motörhead songs are very similar to other ones. You know, in structure and tempo and things like that. It's just that "Going to Brazil" was a bit of an outlier, in itself, and the fact that this is effectively the same song, it can't get lost, amongst the 20 other songs over their career that are similar. It's just these two sort of thing. Not bad, but yeah, say we've heard it before. What came next? Oh yeah, and Another Time. Sound. This is really the first time, if I'm again being fair and as objective as I can be. It's the first time I've heard a song on here and I said, yeah, this could have been on Bastards. It's really goes for the throat, but still manages to be catchy somehow. Something of a hook to it. Strong stuff. The song, I mean, the song. Okay, the album closes with "Out of the Sun" it's called, which is a strong closer. It's not Devils, but it's a strong closer. It's a good composition, and it's got a really good top line from it. If I have been occasionally critical in the past that that good ideas have not developed because of a certain lackluster top line or vocal melody from Lem, then this is not the case here. I can't say they've saved the best for last, but it's up there. It's certainly one of the strongest things on offer. Yeah, there you have it. Well, in terms of them following their established pattern, I suppose in some regards they have been true to it. This is not as good as Bastards, but it is not the drop off in quality that was represented by Rock and Roll and March or Die. So they get a pass easily on this one. It's just it isn't as good as Bastards, but they were really going to struggle, I think, to to surpass that one. It is very metal sounding record, most of it, and because of that, or maybe because of that, it doesn't have those memorable hooks that they seem to effortlessly be able to incorporate even into their fastest, most aggressive material. Maybe that's that old sort of rock and roll thing that Lemmy grew up on and influenced his composing. But this is Yeah, this is much more metal orientated, and per force, I suppose. That's why there are not as many of those types of songs or those type of hooks to be found here. Again, there's really good playing on this album, but it doesn't seem to stand out as much as it did on Bastard. I'll be prepared to accept that that may, to some extent, be down to the production, but it just doesn't have that drive to it, that kick to it. You don't seem to, maybe not as motivated. I don't know. It's a good effort. It's a solid effort. Yeah, if we're doing one of those accursed ranking things, um, yeah, this is a mid-tier, slightly plus effort, I think, in their catalog. However, I do have one fundamental complaint, which I should have registered to them before Lemmy died, I suppose. But in the liner notes, he quite specifically states that if you play this CD, your girlfriend's clothes will fall off. Now, I've had this in my possession since it came out, so that's 30 years. And purely, and I stress this, purely in the interest of scientific discovery, I have conducted this experiment on countless occasions, yet without success. I've had girls cover their ears, run out the room screaming in terror when I played the CD, but I've never yet had their clothes fall off. Yeah. We will see. We will see. Well, there you have it. We'll pick this up again next time where there will more changes afoot. And we'll have another album to review. So, anyway, let me know what you think. Have I undersold this? Is it better than I'm letting on? Let me know. Like, subscribe, share, comment even. And I thank you for your indulgence. Be well, and until next time. Mashonkia.